50% or more of success in selling has nothing to do with product, price, service, strategies, tactics, playbooks, blah, blah, blah. It has to do with grit and getting up and being hungry and going after it.
Meet Jack Daly, who after scaling 6 multi-million-dollar organizations from scratch, decided to change direction and help other business leaders to do the same. He's a no-nonsense character with a battlefield-tested approach.
Are you hiring the person with the right grit, with that magic piece, that hunger piece, that tenacity piece? That's where I start.
One of Jack's many success stories as a professional sales coach includes Liz Elting, who transformed her $4 million company into a $1 billion powerhouse under his guidance.
If your ambitions and your vision is bigger than where you're at, you're not going to get there by you being the main salesperson.
In this video, Jack shares his strategies for building world-class sales teams, adapting to changing markets, and maintaining a passion for lifelong learning. Or, as best-selling author Simon Sinek says of Jack, for decades, we hired Jack to teach us how to sell better, yet what he was actually teaching us was how to be better human beings. Here's a brief glimpse of what's coming up.
So few people are selling with the mindset of trying to help the customer or the prospect with whatever they're challenged with. The majority are operating with what's in it for me as opposed to what's in it for them. I set a Guinness World Record for the largest virtual business conference of 21,261 people. I have yet to meet a human being that enjoys having someone sell to them. People do not want to be sold. To assess whether your product or service can assist someone with their needs, February of 17, I had my goals all ready for 2017. Because they're done by January 1st. And then in February of 17, my wife, Bonnie, is diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Well, the majority of the goals that we set went right out the window. I built 6 companies from scratch into national firms in the US. If you want to grow your business, grow your sales force in quantity and quality, people do business with people they trust. I grew up in the East Coast of the United States in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area, and built some businesses back there, and they went nationwide. And each time I visited California, the weather was terrific. So I said, gosh, why don't I live there and build a business that'll go from west to east? That was in 1985. The company scaled from 4 people to 750 in 18 months. 22 locations in the US. First 3 years of business, we made 42 million in earnings. I built 6 companies like that, similar growth story, between 26 and 46 years old. And at 46, I just lost my passion for running businesses. I just didn't want employees. I didn't want to do that. I had enough money to just stop. But at 46, if you understood who I am, there's no way that I'm retiring at any age. So I backed into the speaking business, and that's where I've been for the last 30 years, traveling the world, helping salespeople, sales managers, entrepreneurs, business owners grow and scale their businesses. I had the worst year of my life. In February of 2017, my wife, who I met when I was 16, and we had 52 years together, was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer.
Oh, no.
And we didn't know what that meant until later that evening, after we looked it up and realized it was a death sentence. So I decided to stay home with her and fight the battle. I stopped my speaking business. And after a couple of months, I got restless, and I said, I need to do something. I'm not going to travel, but I'm going to stay home. And I had for decades people asking if I coach. And I said no, because I'm on the road so often. But I put it out into the universe and said, if anybody's looking for a CEO coach, here I am, let me know. And within 2 weeks, I had 12 clients. And so when Bonnie passed away in November of 17, my clients came to me and said, hey, you're still going to coach, aren't you? And I said, sure. And I found that I liked it a lot. So
Yeah.
I today do a combination of the speaking business that I originally started at, as well as I've got about 10 coaching clients, and they can be anywhere in the world because I do it over the phone or over Zoom or something like that.
I know you do lots of different types of speaking, but I was particularly interested in your virtual workshops. I saw one of them that caught my eye, which was called Building a World-Class Sales Organization.
Yep.
Some of the things that jumped out at me were I'll give you a short list, was how to design a winning culture, when to invest in your current sales talent, how to install extraordinary systems, and particularly interesting, why sports teams are run better than most businesses and what you can learn from them.
Yeah.
So regarding building a world-class sales organization, which is one of your virtual workshops, what do you guys do that might be different from anybody else?
So the virtual workshops uh, are primarily everything is custom designed to the clients typically, but the workshops are designed for people that work for a company that probably doesn't have enough people on the team to warrant me coming to them personally.
Got it.
So people can sign up and buy a seat for the half a day
Yeah.
and learn either how to scale a business, which is building a world-class sales organization.
Hmm.
If you want to, in most businesses, if you want to grow your business, grow your sales force in quantity and quality. So we
Hmm.
teach them that.
Yeah.
In the sales side, it's how to win new customers and grow the ones you have and differentiate yourself from the competition.
Hmm.
Um, and during the pandemic, um, in April of 2020, when we went into lockdown,
Mm.
um, I realized that, well, I'm not going to be in front of large groups anymore,
Yeah.
uh, and I'm not going to be traveling.
Mm.
But if ever they needed me, they need me now. How do you
Yeah.
sell during a pandemic? How do you
Yeah.
build relationships? How do you differentiate? How do you?
Yeah.
And so I hired a crew to come into my house and they built a virtual studio. And
Mm.
in June of 2017, I set a Guinness World Record for the largest virtual business conference of 21,261 people.
Wow.
Um, so um, what I had to teach myself was, and I'm not in my studio right now, I'm in my office,
Mm.
but what I had to teach myself was standing in a room by myself,
Yeah.
how to convey as if I was in a room with live people.
Sure. I get it.
And so our when traveling came back and people could get back together again in hotels and the ballrooms and things like that, many people came to me and said, please still do this virtually because you're just as good virtually as you are live, and
Yeah.
we don't have to put people up in hotel rooms, we don't need to
Yeah.
travel, blah 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 blah. It's
Yeah.
more effective time wise and cost wise.
Yeah.
So we've kept the virtual models for that type of thing, and I have clients that have used me before in a live format, but they want a regular dose of Jack, and all their people had seen me before. So now it's
Mm.
just let's come together. You can sit at your home or office and participate. And the chat box that sits on Zoom is not something that I use during those sessions. I just tell people, um, if you got something to say, just
Mm.
unmute yourself and throw a rolled up piece of paper at me. Just interrupt me and let's go. And so they tend to be very interactive. The virtual workshops, Mike, have typically, let's just say, 100 people at them, and there'll probably be 30 companies that are being represented, all different industries. So the presentation tends to be generic in nature.
Mm.
The customization in those sessions comes from the interactiveness of the group.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, you say it was a bit of a challenge to kind of translate the in-person format to that virtual format. How long do you think it took you to kind of figure that out?
So it depends on how you measure it. So I'm going to tell you that it was all completed and done in terms of my ability to do that in less than 30 days.
Mm,
But that was practicing maybe 5, 6 days a week
yeah.
for 8, 10 hours a day,
Mm,
uh, and just over and over and over again. And my cameras that are up in my studio are about this size.
okay.
And there are times where I am this close to the camera. It's everyone in the room has a front row seat. Uh,
Mm,
and so I just have learned to look at that camera and visualize there's 500 people or 1,000 people sitting out there, and
mm,
I'm standing and I'm emoting and all of those types of things that you
yeah.
typically experience in a live gig.
But
Yeah.
it's great. It's great that you've figured that out and that you've made that transition. If I may allude to your age, are you in what decade are you in now?
So earlier this year I turned 75.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So you're not a million miles away from my mum's age. I don't believe particularly in the concept of age. I believe you're as old as you want to be. But nevertheless, the fact that you are in your 70s and were when COVID hit and that you made that adaptation for me is noteworthy and worthy of considerable praise.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. So I mentioned Ironmans earlier.
Mm.
Um, at 58 years old, I did not know how to swim.
Hmm.
And the Ironman starts with a 3.8 kilometer swim on the clock.
So
Um,
58 when you couldn't swim, and Ironman when you were what, 66, did you say?
58, 50. I did my first one in Sherborne at 58.
Oh, wow, in the same year.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
wow.
Yeah. Almost a million yards practicing in the pool.
Wow.
And I hired a professional coach.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah. Look, lifelong learning is a big principle of mine. I just did my stats for the first half of this year. So far through the end of June, I've read 60 books.
It's good
Um,
going. It's good
so
going.
it's
But
it's all about staying fresh, right? Staying
yeah,
current, staying above the market, staying ahead of the market. I
yeah,
have to bring value to my coach clients. I need to bring value to my audiences, and I have to take on straight away a mindset that many people may arrive at my sessions that are in their 30s and say,
mm,
"What's this guy that hasn't been in the marketplace for how long? He's 70 some years old. What's
mm,
he going to teach us?" Right?
mm,
So in a lot of presentations, I deal with that right up front. Has
yeah,
sales changed? Has sales changed today versus 30 years ago?
yeah,
And the answer is yes, it has, and no, it hasn't. And so then I'll
sure.
go into here's how it has changed, and here how it hasn't changed. And
Yeah,
by
and
the time
so
I finish with that, my audiences are like, holy crap, this guy's on top of his game. Right?
sure, that makes sense to me. One a concept that I guess was brought to my attention in the last maybe year was to focus not on the change, on the things that change, to be successful in business, but to focus on the things that never change.
Like it.
Yeah. And I think that taps into what you're talking about. Humans are humans. Their impulses to buy or to make a decision or not make a decision are the same as they've always been. Our hard wiring may be slightly affected by things like social media, but our impulses remain our impulses.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. Jack, we have a section called elevator pitch. I wonder if you'd be comfortable, I'm sure you would be, giving a brief 20-second overview of what somebody could expect from the virtual workshops that you run. Would you be happy to do that?
Absolutely. If you want to grow your business, grow your sales force in quantity and quality. That's what we teach you in building a world-class sales organization. And if you want to differentiate yourself from the competition, That's what sales is all about, the proven systems and processes to win new customers and grow the ones you have. That is our virtual sales workshop.
Very good. We've got a next section called Deep Dive. What's the most important thing about sales to you?
Well, the most important thing about sales to me is to not sell. And what I mean by that is help people to buy. I have yet to meet a human being that enjoys having someone sell to them.
Yeah.
People do not want to be sold. So the job of a professional salesperson is to assess whether your product or service can assist someone with their needs, their opportunities, their problems, their pains, put them in a better pleasure state. If that is true, then it's our job as a salesperson to enable them to see that, not to sell them, but to help them with whatever it is that they're trying to do.
So is it fair to say that if you, let's say you had this thing to sell, you had this widget to sell, and then you're talking to somebody who genuinely does not need that widget, they've got no space for it in their life, how would you approach that situation?
I got to tell you, Mike, that's one of my favorites. So let me just share this with you. In my business, I would tell you that 30% of all the inquiries we get to hire me to come in and help them win their company, I hand off to other people that are better suited. The best thing that I can do with a prospect is help them in whatever they're trying to accomplish, even if it means not me, my product and my service.
Got it.
Because selling, at the end of the day, selling is the transfer of trust. People do business with people they trust. So if I didn't try to sell you my widget and I moved you into a place that really connected with what you're really struggling with, well, the next time that you need my widget, I'm the only one that you're calling.
I like this a lot. This resonates with me massively. It's just nice to hear it from somebody else. What are you passionate about when it comes to sales?
I'm passionate about watching people take what I teach and employ it in their lives, because I watch them and they get the satisfaction that I get from the people that I teach, opening up their perspective and saying, wow, this is a lot easier than what I used to be doing before I ran into you, Jack Daly.
So can you think of a CEO, Jack, a company? I don't know if you're able, through just, if you can be indiscreet and mention any names or mention any companies, but can you think of anyone that springs to mind when you say these things?
Sure. I'll give you a high profile name, at least in my recognition, and that is Liz Elting. So Liz Elting heard me speak about 23 years ago in New York City. She had a 3-year-old company that was $4 million in sales and had 7 salespeople. Fast forward to today, her company does over $1 billion in sales with over 800 salespeople. And Forbes magazine ranks her in the top 100 women entrepreneurs ranked by personal net worth.
Wow. Wow. And what would you say, how would you say maybe you helped or guided her along that journey?
What I did is I showed her how to scale her business beyond 7 salespeople, how to recruit them, how to train them. Look, if you have 800 salespeople, which is where that company is today, there aren't 800 best ways to sell that product or service. So figure out the best way, build the systems and processes that will enable that to be best practices throughout the organization. You don't want 800 different ways to sell that product or service. So it's something that I call the sales playbook. And what's interesting to me, Mike, is that 98 out of every 100 companies that we run into do not have a sales playbook, which means by default, each salesperson is doing it their own way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, simplifying, systematizing, are those two good words to apply here?
Absolutely. So in my background, I have two unique things for a salesperson. One of them is I was an officer in the United States Army, and the other is that I got a bachelor's degree in accounting and worked in what was known as the Big Eight accounting firm back in the 70s. So both of those organizations were all about systems, processes, and best practices. So I took that mindset and put it into the sales side of the world, where we used to think of salespeople as the natural born salesperson. They've got the gift of gab. Well, the gift of gab is not a sales strategy. Quite frankly, the gift of being a good listener would make a good salesperson.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense as well. That makes a lot of sense. Listen first, see if there's a need, see if you can fill that need, and if you can't, according to your ethos that I also subscribe to, it seems to be pass it on to the right person.
For sure. And by the way, if you didn't get it the first time, if they need or when they need my product or service and come back, if they're only going to call me, then I just don't have to price compete any longer. Because no one's marking my number against anyone else.
Yeah, there's only one Jack Daly, right?
There we go.
I get it. How do you measure success in sales, Jack?
Continuity of your clients. So the hardest thing that a salesperson does, in my opinion, is the first sale with a prospect. Because you had to cross over the hurdle called trust. Once you've gotten the trust of a prospect who's now transitioned into a customer, then the goal is to transition from that being a customer into a client. And the public uses customer and client interchangeably as if they're the same. A customer for me is someone that let's say I offer 10 products. A customer buys one of the 10 every 3 months. A client buys 7 of the 10 every month.
Got it.
So success as a salesperson is taking a prospect, getting them to become a customer, and then transitioning into a lifelong relationship-driven client.
I like it a lot. I like it a lot. In my business, the way I describe that is more of a growth partner. So you in my business, the marketing business, there's lots of agencies. Most of them are delivering substandard services. There's a lot of arbitrage going on, very low quality arbitrage at that. And what we do is the exact opposite. To go to your point about longevity, our longest standing client, I think, is around about 6 years now. And, in my space, that doesn't happen. People don't do that. But if you deliver the service and if you build those relationships that you alluded to, then that just comes together, right?
So this is an outlier example, but my wife, Bonnie, and I were married for 47 years, 52-year relationship, and I lost her 7 years ago. But I have a new wife, and we'll celebrate 5 years next month.
Okay.
And her name is Karen, and Karen was a client of mine for over 20 years. And if you want to talk about the ultimate transition from a prospect to a customer to a client, try it into a wife. And so that's taking it all to a new level.
Well, yeah, I think that's a shining example of your relationship building there, Jack. That's pretty special. I don't think I've ever heard one like that. So that's amazing.
You know what? I have a photo about 9 years ago where my wife Bonnie and my now wife Karen
Yeah.
I'm standing in between them with my arm around the two of them.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's at Christmas time because there's a Christmas tree behind us in the photo.
Yeah.
So we were good friends.
Mm,
And Karen and I had no idea that we would ever be together in a personal relationship. And
mm,
then all of a sudden, we got up from dinner one night and just catching up on life, and we
mm.
kissed, and we've been kissing ever since.
That's cool.
So,
That's
yeah.
really cool. Well, I'm glad you found love again, Jack. That's really cool. Um, to come back to your, I mean, if you don't mind me saying, it's been a long journey, right? You're in your 70s now, and you've been doing this for a very long time. How does the way, I mean, wow, when I ask this question, I'm normally talking to people who've been in business for say 10, 15 years, right? Now we're talking about deep into the 20th century. How does the way you approach marketing and sales now differ from when you started out?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, look, uh, there are some fundamentals, and you and I talked about that a little bit earlier, but there's
Mm,
some fundamentals that I don't think will ever change.
yeah.
I've mentioned one of them already. Selling is the transfer of trust. People do business with people they trust. Well,
Hmm.
if that were true 30 years ago, and I can tell you it was true 30 years ago,
Yeah.
I think that's even more important today with
Hmm.
all of the fake news and the media outlets and the
Yeah.
social media and the X and Twitter or whatever you want to call them,
Mm.
Instagram. What's real and what isn't real, and who do I trust? So
Yeah.
today, the hurdle to get people's trust is even more important. Let's go back 30 years ago with another principle. People do
Mm.
business with people they like.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way people did business. 30 years
Yeah.
ago, you bought from someone you liked. Well,
Yeah.
fast forward to today, it's
Mhm.
absolutely bedrock true. If I don't
Yeah.
like you, I'm not going to do business with you. So some
Yeah.
of those fundamentals are never going to change in my mind. But
I
here's
agree.
what has changed:
Yeah.
technology.
Hmm.
Leveraging technology as a salesperson,
Hmm.
a contact management system I didn't have.
Yeah.
I had files, manila files in moving boxes in the trunk
Yeah.
of my car.
Yeah.
I didn't have the ability to do research on the prospect or the prospect company before.
Mm.
Now I can go to the web and go visit their website. I can go on LinkedIn. I can
Yeah.
go on Facebook. I can learn so much about the individual and the
Mm.
company that the nature of my questions, Mike, now has
Mm.
taken it to another level.
Yeah.
I would be embarrassed in today's market as a salesperson to
Mm.
ask the questions that I used to ask 20
Sure.
some years ago,
That makes sense. That makes sense.
right?
Yeah.
So the fundamentals of selling have not changed, but boy, has it changed in terms of our ability to get the most out of our hours in a day because of
Yeah.
technology.
I would agree. I would agree. It comes back to what we were talking about. There are some things that stay the same. They're almost immutable. They're truths that will probably always be true. But the speed with which we can operate and the depth of information that we can obtain before even speaking to somebody is remarkable these days.
Yeah, so I'm an avid golfer. I may not be a good golfer, but I'm an avid golfer.
Yeah.
And and so anybody that's in my database, and we probably have got 80,000 people in our database at this point.
Mm,
With a couple strokes of the keyboard, I can say who are the golfers.
mm,
And if let's just say that 1,000 people popped up, I
mm,
might send each one of them a favorite golf book called The Elements of Scoring by Raymond Floyd, and
mm.
just put a note inside that says, this will improve your game by 3 to 5 strokes around.
Nice.
Thinking of you, Jack. I can do that like that
Yeah.
in today's world.
Yeah.
Previous, I'd have to go through manila files in some
Mm,
file cabinet, and maybe I might find that there's a golfer in the pack.
I
But
get
it
it.
would take me forever to do that. Therefore, I wouldn't take the activity and do it.
I understand. Jack, what's a common misconception people have either about you or about sales? We've done sales, so maybe about you.
I don't know that there is.
Hmm.
If you pushed me hard on that, I would give you the answer that my new wife, Karen, would give you. And that is that Jack is an introvert. And so when people see me on stage, it's a rock star type of environment.
Yeah.
That is me in the persona of being a speaker. And what I
Yeah.
need to do is emote more and all of that type of thing.
Yeah.
Bonnie and I, when we were married, my first wife, we lived in a 47-year marriage, we lived in 27 different homes.
Oh, okay.
I never had known a neighbor.
Okay.
Just because you have own the house next to me is not cause for kumbaya. I'm a really busy person and I stay pretty focused. You sit down next to me on an airplane and I'm doing 200,000 air miles a year. You and I aren't going to have a conversation if it's up to me, because I've got my own agenda of things I'm going to get done on the plane. And I'm just not into that whole interactive social life. At the golf club, if we've got 300 members, maybe 5 know me. But if people in my audiences see me on stage, they would think I'm the life of the party and everyone at the club knows me.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think the phrase that comes to mind, and I think I'm using it correctly, is an ambivert. You familiar with that?
I am.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's what I am. You can do the parties, you can do the public speaking, you can be charismatic. I'm not talking about myself here. But you can be the life and soul if needed. But if it's not needed, just turn it off.
Guess what? And after a presentation, I am flat out exhausted because I have been operating in a mode that's not myself.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I'm the same. I'm exactly the same. It can be done, but it's not the natural mode.
For sure.
I understand. Very much so. You may have mentioned this. Where did you grow up and how did that shape who you are today?
Well, the second part of that question is the real heart. So I grew up in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area, and I'm the oldest of 5 kids. And there's quite an age span between us all. The youngest is 15 years younger than I am. And we were at best middle class, and I would tell you probably below that in terms of economics.
Yeah.
2 parents and 5 kids in one house with 1 toilet.
Wow.
That's the environment I grew up in. And I had a life-changing moment, and that moment took place at 13 years old when I was a caddy at the private country club. And what I realized after being there for about 10 days is people were playing golf on the weekdays and they were in their 30s and 40s and 50s. And I thought those were work days.
Yeah.
And the people that were playing at the golf in the club were coming and arriving in Mercedes and Beamers and Porsches.
Yeah.
And that was not the life that my dad was living. He was working 6 days a week and he barely was able to put food on the table.
Yeah.
And so one of the advantages I got in my life is I decided to identify a good number of questions I wanted to ask these people out there on the golf course.
Yeah.
And as we walked for 4 hours, I just peppered them with questions about how did you become so successful? What were the top 3 things? What would you tell me to be? What would you tell me not to do? And basically, I heard some common themes. And here's the biggest theme I heard.
Yeah.
1, you've got to have goals and they need to be in writing.
Yeah.
Second, don't pick too many. Otherwise, you'll dilute your effectiveness.
Yeah.
Put a date or some indicator when they're going to get done.
Okay.
And then share them with other people so it puts the pressure, or I'll call it accountability today, raises your accountability. And so I built my goals at 13, and I had 4 of where I wanted to be at 30 years old when I was going to be old. Because at 13, 30 seemed pretty far away.
Yeah.
So one goal was what I wanted to look like financially at 30.
Yeah.
One was what did I want to look like professionally at 30. The third was what do I want to look like education wise at 30. And the fourth was, what did I want my family to look like at 30? Okay. Married, not married, kids. And as long as now I have my destination, my true north, now I just need to build the actions that are needed in order to get those 4 goals accomplished. Okay. Well, that process, Mike, I started at 13. I'm now 75, and I can tell you that I have my goals this year at the ready all the time. And this is a tracking tool that I track and measure every day what I'm doing to move down the line. If you were to go to one of my 2 websites, jackdalysales.com or jackdalyslifebydesign.com, my goals for the year are published there for the world to see, because it will increase accountability. So this process I've done for over 60 years.
I love it. I love it. And the goals that you set at 13, I don't know, did you look back at them when you were 30?
Did I look back at them?
When you reached the age of 30, did you still have those?
Oh, my goodness. Every single one of them was accomplished well before 30.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. Sorry, please.
No, look, it is such a magical advantage to have that process. And here's what I would share with people is that they can change as the years go along, because of things that are not controllable. In February of 17, I had my goals all ready for 2017. Because they're done by January 1st. And then in February of 17, my wife Bonnie is diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Well, the majority of the goals that we set went right out the window. And so redo the goals based upon new circumstances. And so I built 6 companies from scratch into national firms in the US. And I had a timeline of when I was going to exit them. But those timelines were rarely perfect. Because of external events that caused them to either go quicker or to go slower on the exit.
That makes sense. That makes sense. It's kind of like building a home, right? They say it's going to be ready January. It's usually June, how things go. We have I guess you could call this the final section, which we call love hate.
I love you.
I hate you so much!
This is where you decide, Jack, if you are a lover or a fighter. What makes you angry, or what do you love about the world of sales?
What I love about the world of sales is that so few people are selling with the mindset of trying to help the customer or the prospect with whatever they're challenged with.
You love that.
I love the fact that the majority are operating with what's in it for me as opposed to what's in it for them.
Interesting.
Because it makes it that much easier to be successful when everyone else seems to be doing it the wrong way.
So you're zigging while everyone's zagging, yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
I get it. That makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. What's the best or worst advice you got about starting a business?
The best advice I've gotten and that I give today is one word: vision.
Okay, could you elaborate?
Stephen Covey said this better than me. I'll give you my version in a minute. Here's Covey's: begin with the end in mind. Here's what Jack says: you can't get there unless you know what there is. When I take on a new coach client, what I'm asking is, what is it you're trying to build? What does the company look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Is it international? Is it national? Is it state? Where do you do your business? Is it retail? Is it wholesale? Do you have brick and mortar? Is it leveraging the internet? Is it a combination of each? What percentages? Thinking all of that through And in fact, watch this, painting the picture, drawing the company in its future state. Can you draw what it looks like? Because if you can depict that for yourself, and if you can depict that for me as a coach, I can help you accelerate your journey to get there. So I have coach clients today, Mike, where they came to me and said, I want to take my $200 million company and make it a $500 million company, and we want to do that in 10 years.
Yeah.
And then we break all those pieces down, and then I'll go back to them and say, hey, Mike, what if we could get that done in 5 years? Would that be good or bad? Oh, that would be excellent. So we can accelerate your journey to whatever your painted picture is, but I can't even begin to move you in the right direction if I don't know where there is.
Yeah, what the destination is, right?
Right? Absolutely.
That makes
and if you go back to my previous discussion about the golf course and getting the goals, I took 4 goals of where I wanted to be at the age of 30.
Yeah.
Right. And so my competitors, if you will, the kids that were 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, as we move along, most of them didn't have their goals. They didn't know their destination. They didn't have there. So they went to class because they were told to go to class. I was going to class because I had a very clear picture of where I wanted to be professionally. So as an example, I was college prep in high school, and in junior year, the guidance counselor told me I was going to take chemistry and trig, and I wanted business law and bookkeeping. And I had to fight hard to get that, but that fit the form for me better if I were going to become an accountant and eventually an entrepreneur running a business.
I get it. So you fought for the thing you wanted because you knew what the end goal was.
There we go. Absolutely.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I think I'm a person who has, on occasion, had very clear visions of where I wanted to go and be. And it certainly helped me get to that destination. I think something I've been guilty of is not adding in enough detail into that vision. You know, it's been strong and it's been clear in my mind, but I've probably not done the necessary work to actually clearly define it in finer detail. I've always got to where I was wanting to get, but when I got there, I was like, I did miss out a few details along the way about what it was supposed to be, how it was supposed to look.
Yeah, well, here's the extra special part of that. As you add people to your organization, if they don't have the clarity of the destination, you're going to really get stuck in the mud.
That makes sense.
All they're going to do is come in and do their job, as opposed to understanding how the job is making us get to where you want the firm to be.
Yeah.
So regularly and ongoing talking about what that vision is. In fact, as the leader and founder and entrepreneur owner of my companies, what I tell people is that at the end of the year, and we have our business plan for the coming year, well, you guys are executing that. I'm working on future years.
Yeah.
And so I pull the rest of the organization to the vision that I have. And quite frankly, I go to work in the company. Let's just say that I had a company of 50 people, but my vision was to have 500 people.
Yeah.
At 50 people, I drive into work to the 500 person company.
Got it.
And that's where I live, and that's where I'm about. And I'm always taking them to the future in the present time. And the more I can communicate that amongst the people that are employed there, the more helpers I have that will enable me to get there.
Makes sense. Jack, what's your favorite quote?
Nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm.
Okay, I don't think I've heard that one. Is this yours?
Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Oh, I know him. Yes, very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Yes, I do. I know him well. I didn't know that quote though, or at least if I did, I've forgotten it. I like that one. Enthusiasm. Yes. Final question, Jack. what question should I have asked you?
How long am I going to keep doing what I'm doing?
How long, Jack?
So I get up in the morning and pinch myself that I'm so blessed to be able to do what I'm doing. I'm in incredibly good health. I allocate at least 2 to 3 hours a day of exercise.
Yeah.
It's not a punishment. It's a piece of joy for me.
Yeah.
I regularly track how much I sleep, and I average 8.25 hours a night of sleep. And
Awesome.
so I'm very, very particular about keeping this thing in good shape.
Yeah.
I'm also focused on keeping this in good shape in terms of my mind, which will give me an extended quality and quantity of life. So I then go through and say this, if I'm 75 today, which I am, will I be doing speaking and traveling around the world at 100 years old? I don't think so. What about 90? I don't think so. What about 80? Well, now you're getting a little bit too close to me. So, I think about Warren Buffett, and he's in his 90s.
Yeah.
And he seems to still get around and be viewed as somebody that's got his act together.
Yeah.
So as long as I stay relevant, and as long as people are telling me I'm assisting them with what they want to achieve, and as long as I'm enjoying what I'm doing, I'll just keep doing this because it's plain fun. I can't imagine having more fun doing anything else.
Yeah, I agree, and it resonates with me massively. Like, I mean, just notionally, I've spoken to my wife recently about the concept of retirement, and I had to explain to her, darling, you've married an entrepreneur. There's no retirement. There's death. There's a coffin at the end of this, But if I'm retiring, I've stopped. My heart's not beating.
Mike, if you haven't read my most recent book, it's the only non-business book that I've written. And we released it about a year ago, and it's called Jack Daly's Life by Design.
Okay.
And it takes you through what you're talking about. In other words, here's the process and templates to design your personal life for optimization. And at the end of the book, I mentioned if I were to have a tombstone upon my death, it would have my name with a check mark. Got that done. What's next?
I love it, Jack. Jack, how can people find you and the various companies and websites that you've been discussing today?
Easiest thing, Mike, is the websites. It's jackdalysales.com or jackdalyslifebydesign.com. And I would really encourage people that are on the sales and entrepreneurial side of the world to really visit jackdalysales.com, because we have hundreds and hundreds of videos. We have magazines on there. We have literally 50-page workbooks, all of which are free and downloadable. Nice. People could spend years and not get through everything that's on there available for them to just increase their effectiveness in the marketplace.
I love it. I'll be checking it out. Thank you so much for your time today, Jack.
Mike, it's been a pleasure.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. If you have an e-learning business, you're a leader of an e-learning business that you're looking to get to the next level, increase sales, that kind of thing, feel free to reach out. I'll put a link to my LinkedIn beneath this video, and you can get me there. Have a great day.